Unveiling the amazing secrets of Chichen Itza. Discover the incredible power of Maya gods. Those words echoed in Emily's mind, almost mocking her as she hung the large poster in her classroom. The colorful images of ancient temples and vibrant depictions of Maya gods stirred an unease deep within her. She envisioned eager students, their faces lit with curiosity, immersed in the mysteries she'd longed to share. Yet, standing beneath the fluorescent classroom lights, everything felt like a distant dream, overshadowed by the suffocating reality of budget cuts and an indifferent school board. Emily was passionate about teaching history, about unlocking the treasures of the past for her students. But as she flipped through the outdated textbooks, frustration clawed at her chest. How could she grasp the ethereal spirit of the Maya without a visit to Chichen Itza? The thought of honoring her grandmother, a proud descendant of indigenous peoples, pushed her forward, even as doubt slipped into her mind. What if no one cared? What if she failed? When she had proposed the trip, her heart raced with excitement, but the resounding rejection hung heavy in the air. The school board's dismissive remarks echoed back to her. Not feasible, they'd said. What about budget constraints? Each word felt like a weight, pulling her deeper into despair. Yet something within her ignited, a fierce determination blazed to life. Emily gathered her history club after school, her voice ringing with a mix of enthusiasm and desperation. "We can still raise the funds. We'll have bake sales, car washes." But even as she spoke, she noticed the uncertainty flickering in her students' eyes. Could they really pull it off? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The laughter that had been bouncing around the gym floor started to fade, tension creeping in as old rivalries bubbled to the surface. Conversations turned toxic, accusations of favoritism regarding the trip echoed in her mind. She could feel the friction rising. Would her students turn against her over petty sniping? She had thought they would rally together. Every time Emily sat with Mark, the retired archaeologist, late into the night, drowning in historical discourse, it illuminated her passion, yet also threw her deeper into turmoil. His insights were refreshing, but each discussion brought her closer to realizing just how integrated history was with identity. How dare she, in her ambition, prioritize a few students over others? The guilt gnawed at her. Just as she felt herself grasping the importance of her cause, a shocking email arrived, revealing a hidden legacy connected to her grandmother, an ancestry shrouded in more than just pride. The contents threatened to unravel everything she had meticulously built, the tenuous community support slipping through her fingers like sand. What if the revelation turned her own students against her? The very legacy she wished to honor now stood as a daunting barrier. Emily felt the reality of her struggle crash around her. Did she have the strength to reveal her grandmother's truths, to stand amidst the storm she'd created? The weight of her conflict felt almost unbearable. Each heartbeat a reminder that her voice quivered with uncertainty. The shadows of doubt loomed larger than ever. And as Emily faced the ticking clock of consequence, the future of her students and her family's legacy dangled perilously, leaving her thirsting for resolution in a landscape thick with ambiguity. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across Emily's classroom as she sat at her desk, her mind a whirlpool of uncertainty and determination. The weight of the revelation about her grandmother pressed heavily on her chest. Each passing minute felt like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation, whether with herself, her students, or the legacy she had inadvertently tied to their planned adventure to Chichen Itza. What if she made the wrong choice? The very thought of sending an email or making a call to discuss her heritage felt monumental. It echoed the fears she had about the students doubting her ability to lead them, the ones who might prioritize bitterness over the shared journey she dreamed of embarking on. How could she progress forward, fostering belief in a heritage while facing possible rejection from those she sought to inspire? As she stared at the colorful poster, emblazoned with Maya symbols, a flicker of hope ignited. Just as ancient civilization built monumental temples, she too could construct something meaningful. Emily picked up a pencil, jotting down a plan, an outline of her next moves. She would not only seek to raise funds, but also to engage her students on a deeper level. This journey could become a collective unveiling of history, identity, and pride. But it would require transparency and courage. Before she acted hastily, though, she needed clarity. Reaching for her phone, she hesitated momentarily, stealing a glance out of her classroom window where the playfield buzzed with students. She recalled the joy on their faces during the history club meetings, their eagerness to learn. What if sharing this hidden aspect of her family history could draw them closer? What if it illuminated lessons about resilience and bravery against adversity? That day, during lunch, Emily decided to gather her closest allies among the students, deep thinkers who might understand the complexity of heritage. She invited them to Mrs. Collins's room after school, armed with her grandmother's stories and a dare to reckon its significance. Their opinions would provide comfort in her internal battle. Would they view her grandmother's legacy as a burden or a bridge? As the afternoon sun dipped lower still, painting the walls with oranges and pinks, she faced them with a raw honesty she had seldom felt. "I received an email," she began, swallowing her fear. "It contains truths about my grandmother's lineage that I think you should know. They're haunting, but I believe they represent more than just history. They hold lessons about our identities today." Curiosity flickered in their eyes, fanning the flames of the confrontation she feared. Each response was a test of her resolve, a mirror reflecting the uncertainty and thrill of exploration. Would they be supportive, or would they turn away, confused and embittered? Each face mirrored her own internal struggle, a complex tapestry of wonder and anxiety. As they leaned forward, ready to digest her words, the world outside faded away, bound within the space of newfound revelation and possible betrayal. Just as she began to dissect her grandmother's story, a knock echoed from the door. It swung open to reveal Mark, carrying a stack of books titled Maya Culture and Its Legacy. The sight of him stood as a threshold challenge. Would she invite him into this moment, or shield her narrative, her legacy, from him completely? Caught between her desire for openness and the shrill fear of misunderstanding, Emily felt the ground shift beneath her. She could either retreat back into the shadows of doubt or step boldly toward the light of truth. It was time to confront not only her heritage, but also the fears that threatened to hold her back. The moment of truth loomed ahead. What would become of her resolve when the world knew all? Mark stepped into the room, a hesitant smile gracing his face. The weight of his arrival hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the complexities surrounding Emily's unfolding narrative. She could feel the pulse of uncertainty thrumming through her veins, a shared anxiety among her students, and a creeping dread at the back of her mind. This moment was pivotal. The stakes had never felt higher. "Sorry to interrupt," Mark said, glancing at the students before focusing on Emily. "I thought you might find these helpful." He lifted the book slightly, his enthusiasm genuine, but a hint of insecurity lingered in his voice. It was clear he hadn't expected the charged atmosphere that filled the room. "Thank you, Mark," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her. She gestured for him to join the circle. Inviting him in felt like both a relief and a risk, further complicating an already intricate web of emotions. She needed his perspective, but feared how it might shift the dynamic among her students. With everyone now in place, Emily's gaze swept across the group. They were a tight-knit bunch, students who had explored history's depths together and now stood on the brink of another discovery. She breathed in deeply, preparing for the delicate task ahead, the urgency to reveal her grandmother's legacy weighing on her shoulders like a dense cloak. "I was just sharing some truths about my family's heritage," she began, her voice quaking slightly but growing firmer. "I've come to understand that the story of my grandmother isn't just a family secret. It's intertwined with resilience, culture, and a profound connection to our past, the Maya civilization." The eyes of her students widened, their curiosity piqued. Mark leaned forward, the books clutched in his hands as if they were a lifeline. The energy shifted, tension giving way to a shared anticipation. "Your stories matter," Emily continued, emboldened by their engagement. "I want us to explore these connections as we prepare for our trip to Chichen Itza. This journey isn't merely about visiting a site. It's about understanding ourselves in relation to the narratives that shape who we are." "That's powerful, Mrs. Santos," one student, Maya, interjected, her voice a mixture of admiration and intrigue. "But are you sure you want to share that? What if it changes how we see you?" That question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Emily's heart raced. She had been contemplating this very fear, the potential for judgment, misunderstanding, or distance from her students. Would they see her as an authority, or would they suddenly view her through a lens of doubt? "But maybe that's the point," Emily replied, her tone resolute. "I don't want to present a perfect image. I want to be real with you. This journey is about facing uncomfortable truths, about history, identity, and yes, even family burdens. It requires bravery, not just from me, but from all of us." Mark finally spoke up, a thoughtful frown etching lines across his forehead. "Facing those truths can be scary, but I think it can also help us understand more about each other. Just like the Maya used their history to connect with one another, we can too." His words resonated, lighting a spark within Emily's heart. She had feared that sharing her grandmother's story could divide, but perhaps it could unite. As the conversation unfolded, Emily felt a shift within herself. The doubts had not vanished entirely, but they were met with a burgeoning sense of purpose. She realized that each revelation could fortify their collective journey, transforming personal history into a shared legacy. But just as the clouds of doubt began to dissipate, another knock interrupted their dialogue. The door creaked open slightly, revealing an unexpected figure, Mr. Jenkins, the principal. The somber expression on his face sent a ripple of unease through the room. "May I come in?" he asked, an edge to his voice that struck Emily with immediate concern. Suddenly, the moment of truth felt overshadowed by external pressures. Emily's heart quickened, a new tension crackling, echoing the uncertainty of what they might face next. What could Mr. Jenkins want? Would he support her efforts, or cast doubt on her sincerity? The answer loomed precariously, leaving Emily caught between the revelations of her past and the uncharted terrain of her future. Emily's mind raced as she met the hard gaze of Mr. Jenkins. He stepped into the room, an imposing presence that momentarily eclipsed the warmth generated by the students' enthusiasm. The careful balance she had started to cultivate felt like it was teetering on the edge. What did he want? Was he here to derail her plans or reinforce his authority with a quick reprimand? "Excuse me, students," he said, his tone betraying a seriousness that made even the most talkative among them fall silent. There was an air of urgency in his posture, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that his visit was not a mere coincidence. "Emily," he continued, his focus shifting solely to her, "I've heard some troubling reports regarding your upcoming trip and the themes you're planning to present. We need to discuss this." A knot tightened in Emily's stomach. The last thing she needed was someone questioning her teaching methods or her decision to share her grandmother's story. She had painstakingly crafted a narrative that would not only educate but empower her students. Mr. Jenkins, I believe this trip offers them a profound opportunity for connection and growth, she replied, summoning all the composure she could muster. I understand the intent, but our focus must always adhere to the curriculum guidelines. Remember, this isn't just about exploration, it's about academic integrity, he countered, his words harsh yet undeniably valid. Emily felt the heat behind her eyes, a mix of frustration and vulnerability. Couldn't he see that her emotional investment in her family's history was precisely what could inspire their learning? With respect, sir, history isn't solely academic, it's personal, and that's what makes it impactful. If we disconnect from the human aspects, what are we even teaching? Mark, who had been silently observing, interjected softly. We're not trying to skew history, Mr. Jenkins. We're aiming to preserve it in all its authenticity. The kindness in his voice seemed to soothe some of Emily's rising anger, but she didn't want to show weakness. Not now. Mr. Jenkins regarded Mark for a moment before returning his focus to Emily, the lines on his forehead deepening. You have to consider the implications, Emily. There's a fine line between personal narrative and academic presentation, especially when there are sensitivities involved. A silence fell over the room, heavy with unspoken words and unshared fears. Emily felt the weight of their expectations resting on her shoulders, but she also sensed the strength of the support coalescing around her. Their eyes, filled with concern and trust, bolstered her resolve. Perhaps the real sensitivity lies in our willingness to engage with the past, Mr. Jenkins, she said, her voice steady. Isn't that the essence of history? To confront uncomfortable truths? If we shy away from these moments, we lose the essence of what we're trying to teach. She met his gaze, unwilling to back down. There was a fire within her, a clarity born from recounting her grandmother's legacy that she couldn't extinguish. Mark nodded subtly in agreement, and she took that as a sign that her classmates felt it too. Let's not reduce their journey to mere facts, she continued. This isn't just lessons from a textbook. It's about understanding our identities, our history, and how we fit into the world. Mr. Jenkins hesitated, his expression softening as he searched for the right words. Emily could see the internal conflict, his role as an administrator, juxtaposed against a flicker of understanding of an educator's true mission. Very well, he finally said, his voice calmer. But I will need additional assurances that the content aligns with our academic standards. We're navigating some tight waters with this. Relief washed over Emily, though the battle was far from over. She felt a surge of determination, knowing she had to clearly define her teaching intentions while maintaining integrity. She could not let fear dictate her decisions. As Mr. Jenkins turned to leave, his presence still loomed large in the room, dampening their earlier enthusiasm. Feeling the weight of uncertainty hovering, Emily knew she now faced a dual challenge, insisting on her vision while ensuring her narrative remained within academic boundaries. With her heart racing, she thought about her grandmother's strength and resilience in the face of adversity, moments that echoed the very essence of what she sought to teach. Could she weave that spirit into her presentations, unify both her academic obligations and the emotional lenses of her students? Okay, everyone, she said, her voice gaining strength. We have a lot to work on, and I need your help to make this trip truly meaningful. Let's turn our focus into action. What do we want to explore about the Maya that resonates with us? As her students leaned in, excited murmurs filling the air, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. But a nagging question surfaced within her. Was there a way to harness their exploration without compromising her truth? The journey was only beginning, and as Emily faced the students, she knew their path would be riddled with choices that would challenge them like never before. In the midst of anticipation, another knock echoed on the door. What awaited her now? More obstacles or a way forward? The weight of uncertainty had shifted again, and Emily stood at the precipice of her next decision. Emily took a deep breath, sensing a shift in the atmosphere as she opened the door. A flurry of energy rushed through the classroom when she recognized the visage of Dr. Rivera, renowned for her expertise in Mayan culture. Emily felt a rush of hope, but it was quickly tinged with apprehension. Would Dr. Rivera validate her vision or introduce a new challenge? "Emily, I hope I'm not intruding," Dr. Rivera greeted with a warm smile, instantly uplifting the room. "I heard about your upcoming trip and wanted to help however I can. There's so much richness to explore, especially regarding the personal connections your students can make." This unexpected ally invigorated Emily's resolve. "I'm actually trying to bridge the gap between personal narratives and academic learning. It's a delicate balance." Dr. Rivera nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It is, indeed, but sometimes the most powerful lessons come from personal experiences tied to the historical context. Philosophy should empower rather than stifle." Emily felt the weight of Dr. Rivera's words settling comfortably on her shoulders. Here was a seasoned scholar validating her instinct while simultaneously pushing her to think deeper. What lessons could they extract from the Maya gods, those figures woven with stories her grandmother had shared? "Can you help me frame this project?" she asked, her voice steady now, a reflection of the determination that surged within her. "Absolutely, but it sounds like you've already laid some groundwork. Tell me more about the themes you want to explore," Dr. Rivera encouraged, leaning forward and engaging with unfiltered enthusiasm. As Emily spoke, frustration turned to inspiration. She described her vision, drawing parallels between the challenges faced by the Maya and her students' own lives. Each tale she recounted felt richer, more meaningful in Dr. Rivera's presence. Their shared brainstorming session was not merely academic, it felt like an excavation of truth itself. Each question posed by Dr. Rivera forced Emily to confront aspects of her narrative she hadn't quite fleshed out. Suddenly, a realization flickered to life. There was potential to weave in personal reflections from her students alongside traditional academic analysis. They could engage with the myths of the gods in a way that triggered their own desires and identities. This was a space where learning could happen on two levels, intellectual and emotional. But as the excitement of creation bubbled within her, Emily felt another shadow creeping in, the nagging fear that her evolved plan might once again invite scrutiny from Mr. Jenkins. Doubt began to seep back in. Would he understand the deeper emotional threads they were threading into their academic narrative, or would he dismiss her new approach, branding it too subjective? Dr. Rivera, reading the shift in Emily's expression, gently but firmly said, "You have to advocate for your vision. If you truly believe this narrative can transform their learning experience, then it deserves a chance. Remember, effective education isn't restricted to academic standards alone. You must include the spirit of inquiry, your student spirit." Her words struck a chord, igniting a fire inside Emily. This was more than just a trip. It was a moment of transformation for her students and for herself. With conviction surging within her, Emily knew what she needed to do. Let's prepare a framework for the presentation that blends both the academic and the personal. They need to see how the Maya's struggles resonate with their own, she declared, her resolve solidifying. In that simple decision, the path ahead became clearer. She would forge ahead, but not without a plan, one that she would confidently present to Mr. Jenkins. With newfound determination, she turned back to the class, who had been observing the exchange with rapt attention. I want to gather your thoughts and feelings as we build this narrative together. Let's delve deeper into how we can express the true essence of what we'll learn. As students buzzed with ideas, Emily felt the exhilarating rush of collective creativity. Their energy intertwined with her own. But in the back of her mind, a question lingered. Were they ready to dive into the raw truths waiting to be revealed? And would they be prepared for the inevitable hurdles ahead? Before she could contemplate further, Dr. Rivera interjected. "I'd love to join a session with them. This will enrich the experience, but you must remain vigilant and flexible." Taking a step back, Emily felt the weight of her choices bearing down. Validation had come, yet uncertainty lingered. As gratitude and concern swirled in her chest, she faced the room filled with eager faces. Would they embrace the vulnerability of their stories, or shun the difficult truths tethered to history? The momentum was building, but the conundrum lay ahead. Was she prepared to expose her vulnerability while guiding her students to do the same? Emily took a moment, breathless before the unknown, knowing that the pivotal decision to embrace vulnerability lay just around the corner. The days leading up to the presentation felt charged with an unrelenting energy. Emily immersed herself in research, soaking up every ounce of knowledge she could about the Maya gods, their stories, and the cultural significance behind each narrative. The classroom was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation, both for the upcoming engagement with their history and for the personal stories waiting to be unearthed. As Emily prepared her lesson plans, each objective became a thread in the tapestry of ideas she was weaving. She was eager to blend the personal narratives of her students with the rich, layered history of the Mayan civilization. However, with each new piece of information she gathered, an undercurrent of self-doubt tugged at her. Would her students be able to connect emotionally? Would they feel empowered to share their own stories, or would fear tighten their lips? On the day of the presentation, the classroom buzzed with nervous energy. Emily had structured the session to evoke passion, layering compelling visuals of Chichen Itza along with stories she hoped would resonate with her students' diverse backgrounds. As she glanced at the faces before her, she felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. They were all there, ready to embark on this journey together. This was her moment to not only guide them through history, but also enable them to find echoes of their own lives within it. "Today, we stand on the shoulders of a magnificent civilization," she began, her voice steady. "The Maya are more than just ancient ruins. They are a testament to survival, creativity, and resilience. As we explore the stories of their gods, I want you to think about your own challenges and triumphs. Where do your narratives intersect?" Emily's words hung in the air, drawing her students in. Their eyes sparked with curiosity, prompting her to continue. However, a flicker of doubt ignited again. She recalled Mr. Jenkins's criticisms, his persistent reminders about sticking to academic rigor. What if he was right? What if this emotional exploration distracted from their learning objectives? Even as these thoughts clouded her mind, Emily forged onward, sharing the tales of Kukulkan and Itzamna, relaying how these figures faced their own trials. Each story was carefully chosen to mirror the internal struggles she sensed within her students. Every challenge the gods endured could be paralleled with the fears and aspirations these young minds held. One by one, students began to share their reflections. Emily felt her heart swell with every voice that spoke, revealing not just their dreams, but also the burdens they carried. A girl mentioned her struggle with confidence in public speaking, aligning it with the bravery of a warrior god facing terrifying trials. Another shared a history of family expectations, mirroring a tale of a god caught between duty and desire. As their voices filled the room, Emily's eyes filled with unshed tears. This was it, This was the connection she envisioned when she first set this project in motion. Yet, the moment was fraught with conflicting emotions. An unexpected realization washed over her. The very vulnerability she encouraged in her students was also her own struggle. Here she was, right in the middle of presenting her evolving vision while wrestling with the critique of an authority figure. Would Mr. Jenkins appreciate the value here, or would he dismiss it as mere sentimentality? As the session unfolded, she could feel the tide of vulnerability surrounding her. Her students were exploring rich emotional territory, revealing truths she suspected many had kept hidden. Emily needed to embrace her own vulnerability if she hoped to impart the lesson wholly. With newfound resolve, she embraced the fear that loomed. It was time to invite Mr. Jenkins into the conversation, not merely as an evaluator, but as a participant in their narrative. She decided she would ask him to witness this encounter, the intersection of personal stories with historical truths. Perhaps his presence could bridge the gap between traditional rigor and heartfelt exploration. Even as she formulated her plans, a gnawing anxiety remained. Would he be receptive to her request? Would he comprehend the gravity of what was unfolding in her classroom? Emily took a deep breath and felt the familiar surge of determination. The moment had arrived to confront her fears head-on. The narrative they were building was not only a lesson in history, it was a form of resistance against conformist education, and she was prepared to stand firm. With the day closing on a high note, Emily felt energy pulsating around her. Her narrative was alive, thriving within the brave testimonials of her students. Unexpectedly, she realized that inviting Mr. Jenkins might also unveil a challenging truth about herself. As she prepared to approach him in the hallway, a flicker of uncertainty lingered. Would this be the turning point she desperately needed, or another gate closed against her vision? The time had come to face her most formidable critic. As Emily stepped into the hallway, the cacophony of chatter faded into white noise, overshadowed by the tumult roiling in her mind. She watched Mr. Jenkins lean against the wall, his expression focused on his notes, oblivious to the world around him. The gravity of her next move pressed heavily against her chest. This was not just about her lesson. This was about her belief in education itself, her ability to impart meaning and connection. She approached him with purpose, each step deliberate, yet burdened by trepidation. "Mr. Jenkins," she began, her voice steady despite the storm beneath. He looked up, brow furrowed, likely trying to gauge what this might mean. "Emily, how did the presentation go?" he asked, his tone neutral but curious. "Better than I expected," she replied, a flicker of pride igniting her words. The students really connected with the material. They shared powerful stories, and it seemed to resonate with them. She paused, weighing the forthcoming challenge. "I want you to experience that too. I think it would be invaluable for you to join us in our next session." The moment hung between them, a delicate thread poised for tension. She could see him processing her request, skepticism flickering behind his eyes. Her heart raced as she wondered if she had crossed a line, overstepping her role as a teacher into the realm of defiance. "Emily, you know I appreciate your enthusiasm. But this isn't about personal narratives. We need to adhere to the curriculum," he finally responded, his voice a mixture of caution and authority. "But that's just it," she urged, a wave of desperation washing over her. "Education isn't just a set of standards. It's about understanding ourselves and finding connections in our stories. Would you watch them share, just once?" He hesitated, brow creasing deeper as he considered her words. Emily's desperation to reach him brought with it another layer, doubt. What if her passion didn't translate into understanding for him? What if it only heightened the chasm between their educational philosophies? She took a step closer, summoning her courage. "I know you value rigor, Mr. Jenkins, and I do too. But I think there's a space where structured learning and emotional engagement can coexist. I want to find that space with you." For a heartbeat, the hallway stood silent. The noise of the classroom seemed distant, as if they existed within a bubble of conflicting ideals. Was she asking too much? Would he see the potential she had glimpsed, or would he dismiss her as naive? "I'll think about it," he finally said, a guarded tone returning to his voice, a non-commitment that felt more like a dismissal. "Thank you," she murmured, though the uncertainty lingered still. Emily turned away, a mix of disappointment and resolve swirling in her thoughts. What would she do if he refused? How could she continue to advocate for her students without the backing of an authoritative figure? A realization dawned upon her then. Perhaps this moment of vulnerability, this confrontation, had actually granted her clarity. She retained the power to shape her classroom, regardless of his approval. She could still create an environment that encouraged emotional exploration, even if she had to do it alone. As she settled back into her classroom, the buzzing energy of her students reignited her enthusiasm. They had fostered a connection that was raw and potent. Her heart cracked open, allowing all the words and stories to spill forth, weaving a rich tapestry encompassing culture and identity. Yet, as she considered her next steps, a lingering worry prodded her mind. What if Mr. Jenkins escalated his scrutiny, turning his observations into a reprimand? The thought tightened in her chest, prompting her to plan strategically. She had to gather more evidence of her students' growth, artifacts of their emotional engagement. Emily had only just begun to realize the vast potential her classroom held. It was not merely a space of academia, but a forge for resilience and courage. She glanced up from her lesson plans, meeting the eager faces before her. They brimmed with untold stories, and a determination welled inside her, sparking with the understanding she had witnessed. And so, as the bell rang and her next session began, Emily resolved to harness this experience, not just as a teacher, but as someone unafraid to challenge the norm. Perhaps it was time to turn her lessons into a wider narrative, one that faced even bigger antagonists. The following class was going to be a turning point, pushing her to confront not just Mr. Jenkins, but the very foundations of her approach. What would happen when her insights collided with the strict views of the system? Uncertainty thrummed in the air as an undeniable truth settled in her heart. She was ready for the fight. As Emily took her place at the front of the classroom, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins. The faces of her students lit up with anticipation. They were eager to dive into the day's lesson, an exploration of ancient cultures that sparked curiosity. Unlike the more traditional segments of the curriculum, today would showcase the power of storytelling through the mythologies and histories that shaped civilizations, including the enigmatic allure of Chichen Itza. She glanced down at her meticulously crafted lesson plan, realizing that this was not just an ordinary class. This session was her chance to bridge what she believed about education with her students' lived experiences, to explore their identities through the lens of history. But even as her heart swelled with purpose, the specter of Mr. Jenkins loomed large in her mind, a persistent reminder of the battle she was waging against convention. "Today, we're going to learn about the ancient Maya," she announced, projecting her voice with a confidence she was still cultivating. "But instead of just memorizing facts, I want you to think about what these stories mean to you. Why do they matter?" Eyes widened and whispers started circulating as the students processed her words. She could feel their energy shift as they leaned closer, eager to engage. Emily decided to begin with one story that resonated deeply with her own journey, the tale of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, whose duality embodied creation and destruction. As she wove the narrative, she emphasized the significance of duality in their lives. Just like Kukulkan, we all have the potential for both growth and challenge, she said. What parts of your story feel like creation and what parts feel like destruction? Hands shot up, and she called on a student named Maya, whose rich brown curls bounced as she leaned forward. I think, in a way, my family moving here was both. It's scary, but also an adventure, you know? Exactly, Maya, Emily replied, her voice brimming with encouragement. Realizing that this discussion was just beginning, she let her students share and reflect, allowing the dialogue to flow freely. Each word was a stepping stone toward deeper connections, not just with the material, but with each other. After several discussions, however, a tentative silence enveloped the room. Emily felt a knot tightening in her stomach. It was now or never. I want to show you how history isn't just something in textbooks. It's alive in our stories and experiences. I plan to bring in a project where you translate your own narratives into something tangible, like a visual presentation or poetic reflection. What do you think? Excitement filled the air, but just before the bell rang, she paused, addressing the students seriously. I need your help to ensure this project succeeds, to show Mr. Jenkins that learning can be more than just assessments. I want him to see that your stories are just as valuable as any book. As the excitement began to swell again, Emily couldn't shake the creeping suspicion that Mr. Jenkins might still dismiss the project. Could she withstand the scrutiny? Would her students sustain their momentum beyond today, facing potential pushback? These thoughts battled within her, yet necessity fueled her resolve. With every story shared and each student's perspective embraced, she felt the foundations of her teaching practice reformulating. This wasn't merely about winning against Mr. Jenkins, it was a larger journey toward redefining what it meant to educate. The bell rang, and as students poured out of the classroom, Emily leaned against the wall, momentarily breathless with the thrill of the shift she had initiated. But an unsettling thought crept into her mind. She had begun something significant, yet uncertain. The risk was high, and the stakes were real. What would happen when she presented her project idea to Mr. Jenkins? Would he appreciate the transformation unfolding in her classroom, or would he challenge her approach, silencing her passion once and for all? The fight was only beginning, and Emily could feel the winds of confrontation swirling around her, urging her forward into the unknown. As the classroom emptied, Emily stood still for a moment, grounding herself in the aftermath of her lesson. The students' excitement lingered in her mind, like the echo of laughter, a reminder of how powerful engagement could be. But that thrill was tempered by a steady pulse of anxiety. What would Mr. Jenkins think? Her resolve began to solidify. This project, more than just an assignment, had the potential to reshape her students' learning experience and affirm her role as an innovative educator. The following morning was steeped in a pre-meeting haze. The clock seemed to tick louder, mocking her internal struggle as she prepared to engage with Mr. Jenkins. The school's principal was known for his rigid views, prioritizing standardized testing over creative expression. Emily flexed her fingers nervously as she reviewed her lesson materials over and over again, mentally rehearsing her rationale. This was not merely about proving a point, it was about fostering growth in her students. As she made her way to the principal's office, she mentally mapped out the conversation. Would he see the potential in her project, or would he see only the chaos in deviating from the norm? The door loomed before her, a tangible barrier to her aspirations. With a deep breath, she knocked and entered. "Emily," Mr. Jenkins greeted, his tone businesslike, yet questioning her purpose. She sensed his skepticism before she even spoke. "Mr. Jenkins, thank you for meeting with me. I wanted to discuss a project idea I have for my students." As the words spilled forth, she felt the weight of her vision, wrapped tightly in parchment and poised to take flight. Listening carefully, Emily explained how the project would allow her students to explore their own narratives through the lens of ancient cultures, fostering not only a deeper understanding of history, but also personal growth. She illustrated how translating their experiences into art or poetry could bridge gaps, creating a vibrant space where each voice mattered. However, the moment she finished, the expression on his face darkened. Emily, we've talked about the importance of assessment-driven learning. A project like this, it's too subjective, too loose. His words pricked at her, but instead of deflating, they ignited a spark within. I understand your concerns, but what if we measure their growth through the lens of what they create? Each student's story is a unique form of assessment, a narrative of identity, resilience, and creativity. Her voice, firm and steady, cut through the air, pushing against his objections. Mr. Jenkins narrowed his eyes, pondering her rebuttal. You do realize that creativity can sometimes hinder the educational framework we've set in place. Results must be quantifiable. That phrase hung in the room like an anchor, threatening to drag her optimism into murky waters. Would this battle always be waged against numbers and charts? Sir, education isn't just about grades, Emily pressed on, her body tensing with the need to make him see. It's about understanding one another. It's about growth that isn't measured in points, but in perspectives gained. With each word, she felt her confidence ascend. This was more than a lesson plan. It was a paradigm shift. A silence enveloped them. She could see the gears turning in Mr. Jenkins's mind, tension coiling tightly. Seeing a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, she seized the moment. I believe that by sharing their stories, my students can discover confidence and self-expression. Imagine the potential for empathy that this project could cultivate among them. He shifted in his chair, considering her fervor. There was hope, but it was an incomplete resolution. I'll give you a trial run, Emily, but I expect to see concrete outcomes, and quickly. As she exited his office, Emily's heart raced. She had not just defended her vision, she had cracked open a door that had previously felt fortified. Yet she knew the path ahead would demand grit and unwavering focus. With determination solidified, she returned to her classroom, where the hum of her students' energy awaited. This fire was only just beginning. Now she had to transform that inspiration into tangible projects. Could she wield her ambitions and the students' narratives into a force that couldn't be ignored? The challenge loomed ahead, and she was ready to engage. What unexpected narratives would unfold? Emily stood before her class, the familiar, nervous excitement radiating through her. After weeks of preparation, meetings, and grappling with self-doubt, she was determined to not only teach history, but to facilitate an experience that would echo long after the final bell rang. This was a pivotal moment, not just academically, but personally. She was set to blend her own complex narrative with the rich stories of the ancient Maya, intertwining her grandmother's legacy with the lives of her students. As their eager faces reflected a myriad of emotions, curiosity, trepidation, and anticipation, Emily opened the class with a simple invitation. Today, we're not just learning about the Maya, we're becoming part of their story. The moment she uttered those words, she could feel the room shift. A palpable energy enveloped them, igniting a passion that had been brewing under the surface. Today's lesson would be different. Rather than presenting a traditional lecture, she encouraged her students to share their personal connections to the material. Think of a story from your own life that resonates with the challenges faced by the Maya. What can we learn from those connections? As Emily encouraged dialogue, hands shot up. Their voices filled the space with the rich texture of their experiences, framing each lesson in a personal context. Maya shared her immigrant story, reflecting on duality. The adventure of seeking a new life interlaced with the fear of the unknown, similar to the migration patterns of ancient peoples. The classroom atmosphere buzzed with shared experiences, and Emily felt a sense of triumph. The exploration of history was no longer bound by dates and artifacts. "Can you see the parallels?" she urged, her heart swelling with pride. "What does that mean for us today?" The energy shifted again as sharing blossomed into a genuine exploration of identity. Each story created invisible threads connecting them all, transforming them from mere classmates into a community bound by shared stories. As the discussions rolled on, Emily sensed a convergence of confidence. Students, once shy and cautious, began to visibly embrace their narratives, bolstered by the safe space she had carved for them. They were not just recipients of history, they were authors of their own tales, empowered to express their realities against the backdrop of a rich cultural history. By the end of the session, notebooks were filled not just with notes, but with sketches, ideas, and reflections. Emily's thoughts returned to Mr. Jenkins. His acceptance of this project felt tenuous, yet she resolved to present the outcomes not merely as anecdotal successes, but as tangible proof of growth. The following week, armed with an amalgamation of her students' insights, Emily prepared for another meeting with Mr. Jenkins. This time, she wouldn't walk in uncertain. Instead, she aimed to provide a comprehensive overview of the initiative, focusing on the students' transformative experiences. When she entered his office, she felt a solid determination. "Mr. Jenkins," she began, her voice steady, "I would like to showcase the student presentations we've been working on." As she spoke, she laid out the notebooks filled with reflections, sketches, and photographs of their engagement with the history they'd studied. The principal listened, his brow furrowed as he perused the contents. "You're suggesting this could enhance their learning outcomes?" he replied, an edge of skepticism still lingering in his tone. "Absolutely," Emily affirmed, passion radiating from her words. "These projects merge personal experience with historical context, bridging the gap between what they're learning and who they are as individuals. It's a profound expression of their identities." As Mr. Jenkins reviewed the student work, Emily could see the gears in his mind turning. Moments ticked by, each second heavy with unanswered questions. Would he see the merit in her approach? Finally, he spoke. "You've presented strong evidence, Emily. I can see the depth of engagement here. If this can sustain academic rigor moving forward, I'll support your project." The relief that flooded Emily was indescribable. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. This means more than I can express," she said, sincerity spilling from her lips. As she left the office, she felt buoyant. Emily had not just defended a project, she had shifted a paradigm. The intertwining of personal and academic narratives had transformed her classroom into a space of exploration and empowerment, a sanctuary where history and identity married. In the weeks that followed, the class flourished, the energy palpable as they dove deeper into the Maya civilization, unraveling myths and confronting historical truths. Emily reveled in the evolution happening around her. Her students became confident narrators of their stories. The culmination of their efforts was a presentation day filled with art, poetry, and heartfelt testimonials. Emily stepped back, observing her students showcase their hard work, their faces radiant with pride and accomplishment. The journey had been arduous, but they stood united, each proud of their unique narratives and connected by a shared journey. At that moment, Emily savored the essence of her growth. She had evolved from self-doubt to leadership, standing firmly in her identity as an educator who fostered communal growth through personal storytelling. The fire that had ignited in her students' hearts now blazed brightly in her own, signifying a commitment to not only teaching history, but also honoring the legacy of her grandmother. As the presentations wrapped up, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment wash over her. They had not only explored the history of the Maya, but had also unveiled their truths. standing on the precipice of a future filled with possibilities. She had become an architect of change, building bridges, ones that connected their pasts with the promise of the future. Subscribing to this journey had never been more significant. So, if you haven't yet, you need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories unfolding in our classroom. Leave a like now. It fuels our passionate pursuit of learning and growth. Please comment your thoughts and reactions about this transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of overcoming through education. True fans of personal growth and perseverance will understand how important your support is to shaping future narratives.